Hi, I'm Jerry from Attic Treasures, and this is this month's project at our So Creative Club is this wrist pin cushion that's done with the embroidery machine on a machine that can be as small as a 4x4 embroidery field, and also we'll be using the sewing machine and a tiny bit of hand sewing. So here we go. See, you can never have too many pin cushions, and this one is great because as you're sewing, you can place it in there. They're quick and easy to make and so much fun. Okay, for this project, you're going to need 3 plate pieces, 4" by 4" pieces of a darker felt. I'm going to use a brown, cut 4 inches by 4 inches, and 1 4" by 4" square of light felt, either white or a light color. Okay, you're going to need a 10" by 3 1/4" strip of fabric to cover the snap wrist. And I got this snap bracelet thing from the dollar store. So, but I'm going to take the cover off because this is like really cheesy. So I'm going to take this and throw it away. So I'm left with the center of the snap bracelet. Okay. Going to need 2 3" pieces of cardboard, and I'm using 2. You can use 1 or a piece of hard plastic. This will keep the pins from sticking through onto your skin, and I'm going to use a really thin hard piece of cardboard, but I'm going to use 2 pieces and glue them together so that I don't get stuck by pins. You want to use your embroidery hoop. You're going to use both your embroidery machine and your sewing machine. For the sewing machine, you're just going to need sewing thread that contrasts the fabric, or that's the same color as your fabric on the wristband. Okay, embroidery machine, you're going to need your 4x4 hoop, or it could be larger, and you're going to need tearaway stabilizer. You're also going to need some water-soluble topping as well. So, and then I'm going to use black embroidery thread, but I'm going to make sure that I have the bobbin the same color. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to sew my the covering for the wristband. So what I'm going to do is I've cut this 3 1/4, but this one is a little narrower now that I've taken the cover off. So I'm probably, instead of taking a 1/4" seam, I'm going to take a good 1/2" seam. That way it'll fit a little more snugly. So I'm going to just sew, and if I'm using my machine, my baby lock, and I'm using the J foot, if I have the needle at the leftmost position, which is the default position, then as long as I use the right edge of the foot as my guide, then that will give me a 1/2" seam. I just want to slide this in just to make sure it's going to go in easily, and it does. Okay, it goes in smoothly and it closes, so we're good to go. So now I'm going to go to the ironing board, and I'm going to press this seam flat and in the center. So I'm going to put this in the middle, and I'm going to press this flat. Now that I've got it pressed open with the seam in the middle, I'm going to just mark the edge of my wristband, the snap bracelet, because I'm going to sew this shape. Some of these snap bracelets are square on the end, some are rounded, so I'm going to just sew right around this, the mark I just made. I'm going to back tack that, just sew right on the line, back tack the end. Okay, and then I'm going to trim it and turn it, and I'm going to trim it close. Okay, and now I'm going to turn this right sides out. Okay, now I've got it turned and pressed on the inside. You want to make sure that the seam, you're going to put this so that it curls in the same direction as the seam. So I'm going to now slide this in all the way to the end, and make sure it's going to close. And then I'm going to Actually, sometimes it helps take your chalk and just mark the edges. Because now I'm going to trim this about 1/4 of an inch away. And I'm just going to tuck it in. And then I'm going to hand stitch this down. And now, if I just whip stitch that closed, this part is finished. And now we're going on to make the pincushion itself. Okay, I've loaded my file into my sewing machine, and I am using, it's called pincushion bottom. I think it's the bottom. You'll see the buttonholes first. And I have loaded black thread into my needle and my bobbin. And here we'll load the 4x4 hoop. Okay. And I'm going to just the first stitch, it's an applique process, so the first stitch is just going to show me my outline. A piece of red thread. And I'm using just the tearaway. Okay, and now once it's stitched the placement for the applique piece, I am going to place one of the dark felts right on the top, and then I'm going to stitch the second color stop, which is going to give me the just a tack down of the felt, as well as put in the buttonholes for the wristband. Now, before I put the next layer on, I'm going to take the hoop off of the machine and I'm going to make tiny little slits in the buttonholes. I don't want to cut it all the way through to weaken it. I just want a place to start cutting when the pincushion is finished. That way I won't cut through all the layers. So now I'm going to put this hoop back in the machine and put another dark layer on the top. There. Okay, once that is finished, I'm going to take the hoop out of the machine and take the fabric out of the hoop. Because next we're going to work on the top part. I'm going to tear away all this stabilizer, remove it all, clip the threads, because this is actually going to be the right side. You could also use a water soluble, and that way all you'd have to do is rinse it out, but felt will shrink, so. And then you remove all of this stabilizer and clip your threads. There, and now I'm going to take my seam ripper. First I'm going to clip all these threads out of the way. Then I'm going to take my seam ripper and find that slit. Make sure you pull this apart so that you don't put the slit all the way through. And then I'm going to just open that up the rest of the way so that I can insert the wristband. If you use the ball of the seam ripper, then you're not going to cut all the way through both layers. Then I'm going to just clip these threads and set it aside. Okay, now I've loaded a new piece of stabilizer into my hoop, and it's a tearaway, and I've loaded the top of the wristwatch file into the machine, and now, okay, the first stitch is going to be a placement stitch. Then the second one, I'm going to put another piece of dark felt on, and it's going to tack this down. And I want to cover that stitching and leave a, you know, about quarter. You want it a little bigger, 1/4 inch, so it'll go all the way around, because you're going to use this as your seam. This piece, this top is a little bigger than the bottom. Sometimes it helps to spray it. Okay, now the second time is going to be your placement. You're going to see the stitching for the light color. And then you're going to place the light color, and for your fourth color stop is now going to give you the top of the watch. Okay, now I'm going to remove the hoop from the machine, but I'm not going to take the fabric out of the hoop, and I'm going to trim all of this excess felt from around the outside of the clock face. So for this, I like to use a curved scissor. That helps to take it all the way out. Now I'm going to return the hoop back to the machine. Lock it down. This time I'm going to be making the clock face, so I'm going to put a layer of the water-soluble stabilizer on the top so that those stitches will form nice and smooth over the surface of the embroidery. So I'm going to just place that piece of solvay, or not solvay, the water-soluble stabilizer right there, and I'm just going to hold it until it gets just a few stitches in. Okay, all done. So what we're going to do is now remove everything from the hoop. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. Remove all the stabilizer from the solvay. Remove all this solvay, remove all of that. If you can't get it out, then sometimes you just take a wet towel, like a wet washcloth, and just stamp it, and it'll come right off. And I want to go ahead and take most of this stabilizer out. You don't have to take it all out, but I like to take it. It just makes it a little softer getting the pins through. Okay, now we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew these two halves together. Both this half and this half together. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pinking shears and just pink this edge really close, and I'm going to stitch these two together. Okay, now what I'm doing is I make sure that you have the 12, you have the buttonholes, so that the buttonholes are going across, are positioned around the 3 and the 9 o'clock, so that this will at least look straight. So you want to start pinning this in the quarter, because every quarter of the way around, it's like half and then quarters, then come and divide this in half. Because this top piece is larger than the bottom piece, we're going to have to ease it in. Otherwise, this will be a very flat looking pincushion, but it will ease in. So I'm just going to use lots of pins. Okay, then I'm going to use that left needle position, and I'm going to push this in either using the stylus or my handy dandy seam ripper. Works very nice as a stylus in a pinch. Take the pins out just before you reach them. And you're going to ease this top into this bottom piece because this bottom piece is smaller. Remember, don't sew it all the way closed. You want to leave an opening. Right now that pincushion would be helpful. You could do this by hand. Some people think easing this in by hand is going to be easier. I don't, but some people will. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch this off camera because you don't want to sit there and watch me stitch around. Almost halfway. I only want to stitch about half of it because I need to insert the cardboard. Okay, now that I've sewn and turn this about halfway, I'm just going to insert the piece of either piece of plastic or cardboard, and I found that 3-inch cardboard was just a little bit too big, so I cut it down to like 2.5. And now what I'm going to do is just stuff it. Stuff as much as you want, as firm as you like it. I could use some more. And then I'm going to hand stitch this closed. I'll just pin this down and then just hand stitch this together. Sort of turn it in and stitch it closed. Okay, I'll do that off camera. I was going to hand stitch this down. Okay, now I finished sewing around the edges and it's stuffed so it looks like a little wristwatch. If the white is showing through, the white stabilizer is showing through, just take a fabric marker and just mark it out and no one will ever know. And now I'm going to put this in so this just gets threaded in. I've also stitched the end of the strap closed. So I'm just place this in the middle. If you want to put a little bit of hot glue, that's fine too. And now, okay, all done. It's ready to use.